Welcome to Home Health 360, a podcast presented by AlayaCare. I'm your host, Jeff Howell, and this is the show about learning from the best in home health care from around the globe. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home Health 360, where we speak with home care and home health leaders from across the globe. Today, I'm excited to chat with a couple of executives at Griswold, the oldest non-medical home care franchise in the U.S. with roots going back to 1982. Michael Slupecki stepped into the role of president just prior to COVID and probably had to pivot a few of his strategies for the company, which we'll learn about in a minute. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. Great to be here.
And we're also joined by the VP of Marketing, Shelley Canther, who at least had a 6 months warning before joining Griswold in December of 2020, and spent a year working, about a year and a half, working at KWY News Radio 1060. So I'm going to try to channel my inner news radio voice. I got a little insecure when I noticed that on your LinkedIn profile, Shelley.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for being here.
Sounds good. Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Well, Shelley, when we did a quick prep call for this episode, that's when I learned that Griswold is not only the oldest non-medical home care franchise in the U.S., but that there is an entrepreneurial story of Jean Griswold where she had learned of the passing of a community member in her neighborhood. And that's what sort of inspired her to start Griswold. Can you give us a little bit more background on that story?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a story we love to tell people. Dr. Jean Griswold in Chestnut Hill, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Philadelphia, started Griswold Home Care at her own dining room table. What happened was her husband, who was the pastor of the parish there, came home and told her that one of the elderly parish members had passed away from malnutrition and dehydration, just simply because of lack of support for this elderly woman in her home. And nobody really knew how dire her needs were. And Jean really felt that this is something that shouldn't happen. And she also felt strongly that there are people in the community who want to do good, hard work and are very caring and compassionate. So why not marry the two needs together? So she started Griswold Home Care in 1982, like I said, out of her dining room table. Another interesting thing to note is that Jean suffered from multiple sclerosis, and she was in a wheelchair she was diagnosed at age 36, so she was in a wheelchair for most of her life. So the entrepreneurial spirit was strong in her despite any setbacks that she felt through her own health, but she also had the empathy of someone who knows what it is to need support and help, but also to be able to receive it provided with dignity and receive it with dignity as well. So we come from a very important background that we try to live out each day through the company's values that Jean established way back then.
Yeah, and Shelley, talk about what we just did through the legislation to honor her.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we are in the middle of finalizing bicameral legislation with the state of Pennsylvania, and we are going to be naming a stretch of road that runs almost from Chestnut Hill out past to the current office location. And it will be named Dr. Jean Griswold Memorial Highway, which is really, really exciting and just in time for our 40th anniversary next year.
Oh, that's great. Is that the first home care inspired highway in the U.S., I assume?
I don't know. That's a good thing to find out, actually. Good point.
Yeah, and she actually, it evolved into a family business. And as we've met more and more of our franchisees that started out as employees of the company working for Jean and went out and started their own franchises, it's really a grow up story from Jean and a lot of the things that developed from her.
Well, I love how she's so central to your marketing. I have to say, I think you might have the best photos of any website in home care. Just that retro film. I look at that and I felt like I was looking at a family album from my childhood. And, it's great to see that, her legacy lives on with, with the name and how you guys honor her with your marketing as well. I think it's incredible.
Well, you'll have to come on down to our office because we have an entire wall that starts with, back in 1982 when Jean started Griswold Home Care. And so it's, large images all along the wall of, historical images of her and her caregivers and franchisees as they came on board, and different honors that she received all throughout her life, and, all the way up to the present. So we do try to keep close tabs on our history and really tell people about it whenever we can.
Oh, that's great. Michael, question for you. So you have this impeccable timing of starting, I guess, a few weeks before a global pandemic. I'm really curious, you probably were just getting excited to implement some new change at the company, and then we're thrown this huge curveball. I'd love to hear from you. What are the things that you were able to see through, or what are the things that you really had to pivot on? And, what are your lessons learned from starting a new role just prior to COVID?
Yeah, thank you. I actually went back and ahead of this call, because you shared, that kind of thought you were going to ask me, and was looking back at, some of my day one initiatives that, I wanted to kind of hit the ground running on. And one of them, you just touched on, which was the website. That whole retrograde kind of photo thing, that was brand new. We wanted to do a website relaunch. And in fact, my second week on the job, I attended the IFA conference, and we were meeting with vendors, and we thought we narrowed it down to a leading franchise website vendor. And then you're right, the pandemic hit, and it just caused you to pause. Is this the time to make hundreds of thousands of dollars of an investment and a commitment when there's so much uncertainty? But we honestly only paused for about 2 weeks, because then we also realized that as everything was going remote and everybody's working from home, that electronic presence was even more critical. And on top of that, since the vendor that we selected was so franchised focused, they went into uncertainty. As you know, the franchise industry is largely a large part of the franchise industry is in the food and entertainment side, which was getting decimated, and I think they were asking themselves what's going to happen to their business. And we both kind of went into this partnership with a lot of uncertainty, and I think we helped them by plowing through, and they were willing to partner with us and take I guess a more partnership approach, and be aggressive on the pricing, and it just made sense, and we plowed through. And that website that you referenced, that we think looks spectacular, not only the look, the feel, but it's also all the stuff behind the scenes that Shelley's the expert on. It's the dashboards that our local franchisees can use to make their things more effective. It was ultimately a great decision, pat myself on the back, because by the time we kind of got more, obviously we're not at the end of it, but things came back and things started opening up. And instead of starting 9 months later, we were done. By the time Shelley joined the company, we were live. And so that was probably one of the ones that we did not, other than pause for a couple of weeks, we did plow through. I mean, the other things that, I wanted to do too is I would say the other thing is just strengthening the team. We had folks that were wearing multiple hats that honestly had too much stuff on their plate. Our COO was carrying both franchise support as well as overseeing company operations. We split those roles to bring in more focus. And Shelley was the other person that we had, a gentleman that was kind of straddling IT and marketing and franchising and home care. Marketing is such a critical function that we split those roles, and that's how we met Shelley, and she's made a huge impact on this organization, since she started. So plowing forward on, strengthening the team and bench strength was something that we definitely plowed through on. I would say the one thing that got paused that we're only now kind of getting back to is in the area of kind of these strategic partnerships. We came very introverted in a sense, focusing on, as we're going to talk about, there's recruiting and things like that, and all the things that we had to do from a regulatory perspective, or I should say, all the PPP stuff and all the, FFCRA, all these acronyms that all these small businesses were navigating. We didn't want our franchisees to have to figure this out all by themselves as they were dealing with all the things that they were dealing with the call outs and, all the scares and positive tests. I mean, they're dealing with enough of the stuff themselves. So being that educational source for them, to have them, spend as little amount of time learning, that we can. So, we did like, a lot of companies, especially in our space, did have a little bit of a hiccup, but, at the end of the day, folks need care, and they wouldn't have hired us if they could do it themselves. And I think some of the families tried to do it themselves and realized quickly that they couldn't. And they just have so many other responsibilities themselves. And so, we said by the end of the second quarter, we were back where we were at, before COVID, and we've continued to grow. We had a successful 2020 and a successful 2021, and we've got a lot of things, going forward for 2022.
So end of the second quarter, you guys, that seems like a pretty quick bounce back period.
Yeah, that's exactly how we felt as well. And the whole time you were just wondering, I shouldn't say the whole time, to this day, now we're talking about another variant, It's like, what's next? But I think it strengthens you from the standpoint that you look at yourself and you say, well, I got past that. And it just bodes your confidence that, whatever you throw at us next, we're going to deal with.
Yeah. There's a number of companies that did a lot of growing up really quickly. Cause, what do they say? Innovation is what's the saying? Necessity is the
I know what you're saying.
Mother of invention.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about where, and Michael has talked to me about this, where home care, or I guess more even specifically healthcare, was in regards to technology prior to the pandemic. And then just, months later, the leaps and bounds that healthcare went through for, signing things electronically and doing, telehealth appointments. People do them all the time now. It's the norm rather than, the thing that you've never tried. And so it just really made people fast forward.
Yeah. Sure. Being in the home health and home care space for 20 years, since I first joined it, 20 years ago, I've been told by the futurists that the future's in the home. And, the first 19 years, we didn't make much progress. And then we made 20 years of progress in about 6 months. And it's true. And what we've talked about at the team level is that we need to hire folks that, get land sick, not seasick, but land sick for things staying the same. And so we have to be ready for the next change and be ready to adapt, and because the world is a very shifting place, and that's what we need to survive.
Yeah. So Shelley, on the topic of marketing, I recently came across this concept of people that were, in light of staffing being at an even higher challenge with, vaccine hesitancy and vaccine mandates. And, it's a challenging during the best of times. I noticed on your website, you guys have a number of different sub menus under the apply for a caregiver section. Why would you want to be a caregiver, the benefits of being a caregiver and whatnot. I'm curious if there's been a shift in your marketing in that getting clients is not the problem, but marketing yourself to potential caregivers could be, sort of the better perspective and focus to have on. Has anything changed with you guys since COVID hit?
I mean, absolutely, 100%. We are ultimately focused on caregiver recruitment and retention now. And, it's always been a focus, I believe, prior to when I was at Griswold Home Care, it was always about finding good caregivers and keeping the good pipeline open. But I think that obviously the pandemic and also the labor shortage has really exacerbated that. And without good caregivers, we don't really have an organization. So if we can't provide the care and the quality care that we want to provide, we're not going to have a successful company. And so the pandemic really did put a spotlight on caregivers in that way and how important they are. And so it has been an issue for a long time, but it's super acute now. And we've had to turn away clients in some cases because of the caregiver shortage. And so we've tried to respond to that, particularly within the last, I would say, year, around a year. We started planning for some things. And the first thing we did was create a 5-part series of what can you do to improve your caregiver recruitment and retention right now. And so we pushed content out once a week, including, an email blast, blog content, a webinar that was pre-recorded, or a short video, and just gave our franchisees that next step to do, and just to do it right now and put it in bite-sized chunks so that they didn't get overwhelmed. And so we did one a week for 5 weeks. In the meantime, we took a really amazing production studio up in the Lehigh Valley, which is in Pennsylvania, and recruited caregivers from the surrounding states and Pennsylvania, and did this, took this day to sit in this production facility with a white screen and just the caregivers, and ask them a lot of questions about their job, why they love their job, and why does it give their life meaning, or what does it mean to them to be a caregiver. Tell us about the relationships that you've developed with your clients, and all of those kinds of things. And a little bit about, what's it like working for Griswold Home Care. And we just got such amazing content from these folks. And we took that and turned it into a full-blown campaign called Care With Us. And it includes video, short clips for social, long-form video for the website, an OTT campaign that we put out nationwide, or connected TV, that we did over the summer. Social media advertising that we are currently doing around all office locations using all of these materials. I mean, there's also email blasts, templates, all kinds of anything you could think of that you might need asset-wise. We have under the brand of Care With Us. And it's been a hugely successful campaign for us. It's very compelling. Like I said, it's real people talking about their jobs and why they love them. And so along with that, in the meantime, an even longer term solution for our franchisees was this caregiver retention and recruitment and retention toolkit that our operations team led the charge on, that of course marketing supported. And it's super comprehensive. It lives on our own sort of intranet that our franchisees can access, and it gives best practices for everything from step one the whole way to how do you keep your employees or your caregivers engaged. And it's just a fabulous tool. Everything down to here are the types of job ads using the correct keywords that are going to get you the best response. A lot of thoughtful data and research went into that toolkit. So,
yeah, just to interrupt you, Shelley, the one thing that we like to talk about too is we're not just a franchisor, but we have our own, we have 6 company-owned locations. And as we were developing the tools that Shelley had mentioned, we were demonstrating with our own operations the before and after of putting in place one of those key lessons or one of those key tricks, whether it was just down to the word changes on the ads that we showed the before and after and how many applicants we got. And also the timing of the ad placements and the frequency of the update of the ad placements. And we kept playing with everything to see which balanced out to the best result. And that way, we're not just telling our franchisees, hey, we're the smartest, this is the way you should do it. We're actually showing them with data as to the impact it's had within our own operations. Right. And we think that's what's drawn more attraction and more adoption throughout the network.
How many? So these are corporately owned stores then, right? Or locations, correct. I mean. So how many corporate locations would you guys control then?
Yeah, we have 6 corporate-owned locations. They're actually we're at 6 going to 8, and they're all within about 90 minutes of our headquarters. We have 3 in Pennsylvania, 1 in New Jersey, and 2 in Northern Maryland. So, and that was one of the other hires we made, is somebody, a vice president, to oversee those 6 that have made a really big impact.
Yeah, that's great to hear that you can be sort of the crash test dummies of trying out some new things and then actually hand over the real data to the franchisees saying, we've made these mistakes so you don't have to.
Yeah, we call it the test kitchen.
They appreciate it too, because they like to think that they'd rather just have something that's been shown to have a positive result rather than try this out and let us know how it works.
Yeah. So on caregiver recruitment these days, are you guys doing anything in person? Is it mostly virtual? Are you doing a bit of a hybrid? Are things getting back to normal? What are you guys seeing?
It's still largely virtual. As you know, people don't like to, talk. They like to avoid face to face. I mean, so we have to adapt to them. And so it's electronic, it's text messaging, all of the above. We try to make things, we spend a lot of time and energy with our technology to make it as easy as possible to become a caregiver with Griswold. You know how frustrating it is to buy things online when you got to click too many things or go, get rerouted. You got pop-ups, put your stuff in twice. All that stuff is very frustrating in today's age. So the fact that we can streamline it through an app on their phone and no rekeying, no having to do things twice, shorten the process. We think that's all really key to, we would joke, somebody doesn't apply for a job to get a shift 6 weeks from now. And a lot of the competitors out there are taking 4 and 6 weeks from applicant to first shift. And if we can get that to, 1 to 2 weeks, we have a much better chance because they're on to the next job. I mean, it's a very transient workforce.
Yeah, we have some data around 1 out of every 3 caregivers quits without even having gone to one visit.
So, in order to combat some of that too, and this is an even longer term play, but if you think back to what we talked about with Dr. Jean Griswold and sort of her legacy, she very much cared about providing good, honest work for people who wanted it and that had a caring and compassionate spirit. And so we have the Jean Griswold Foundation, who up to this point was a private nonprofit that actually gave money to nonprofits that helped elderly or seniors. But we've changed that over this last year and changed the designation to be a public nonprofit and completely changed the focus. And our focus now is on caregivers specifically. And we're raising money through the Jean Griswold Foundation to provide educational opportunities, training, scholarships, and hardship grants for caregivers. So showing caregivers that, we care about you as a whole person and not just, come do this shift right now because we need it, but, we're going to invest in you too. And so that's been a huge initiative for us this year. We just had our first campaign, fundraising campaign in the fall. It was a 6-week-long campaign, and we were thrilled to say that we raised $105,000 in that campaign, just a little over it. And that's going to allow us to really fulfill some great goals with that money. And we're going to continue for years to come. That's
incredible. I noticed that on your website. And I have to say, it's the first time I've ever seen a scholarship on a home care agency website.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, and it's also, we really get behind it and really get excited about it because it is a differentiator for us. It is, we are proud to say that we're continuing the legacy that the company was built on and really trying to provide quality employment and opportunities for people.
Michael, you said on the caregiver recruiting side of things, you react to how the caregivers want to be communicated with. Given that you guys had this short sort of quick rebound, and I know I read an article in Home Healthcare News from a week and a half ago, you guys are up from about 20% from last year's growth. I'm curious what it looks like to recruit new franchisees. If you guys were leaning on going to franchise trade shows, or how that process maybe has evolved to be partially virtual, or if it's still in person, or how that all plays out.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's changed a lot. I haven't, in my experience, had a ton of success at franchise shows. We've attended franchise shows more on the broker side, building relationships and trying to, show the broker community that we're a brand that you should consider when you meet a candidate. On the actual individual candidate side, it is largely still, virtual. The website redevelopment that I touched on before, that was a huge improvement. Most of the folks that know in the franchise industry, your best candidates are the ones that come through your own website. So if your website is not competitive, you're not getting the best candidates. And so we've seen more as a result of that redo, as well as just continuing to do the things that we've always done. And so, and we're back to holding, last year when we had a candidate that was, at the finish line, if you will, and we wanted to do the team meeting. I think a lot of people refer to it as a discovery day. We were doing those virtually. And there were candidates that went through training virtually. And there were folks opening businesses that we never met in person in 2020. We held our first live new owner training in July. And that was the first time we met those new candidates in person, was at their initial training. But right now we're back. I mean, we're working on scheduling some discovery days in our headquarters. We've just done another training with a young couple in the Minneapolis market. And so, yeah, we want to do more. We're still kind of coming out of a period where it really wasn't a focus. But that was certainly one of my kind of day one initiatives is really to get back to expanding, our footprint. We have a lot of opportunity, a lot of markets to still go. We're well penetrated along the East Coast, but there's a lot of states we're still not in. We're only in about 29 states. So lots of white space and lots of opportunity for growth.
For customer satisfaction, how do you guys think you guys are scoring relative to pre-COVID days, and then how you've adapted now and trying to keep your customers happy? How are you guys managing?
Yeah. No, we're doing great. I think, we use the home care pulse, which is kind of the industry benchmark for measuring both caregiver satisfaction as well as customer satisfaction. And we're proud of the number of owners and franchisees, as well as our company owns, and how they score. At our conference that we just wrapped up, we added, a trophy, if you will, or an award for the operation that scored kind of across the board the highest scores for both caregiver as well as customer satisfaction, according to Home Care Pulse. And so, that's our way of communicating to the network, the importance of this, because it really all starts with satisfaction. And I'll even back it up in terms of priority. We would say we think, caregiver satisfaction is the prelude to customer satisfaction, right? They're the ones that are out there dealing with our customers. And in fact, we really refer to them as the first customer. We have to sell them on the opportunity to work with Griswold Home Care, give them the shifts that they want, give them obviously the pay that they want, and sell them on why their career with us is the best. And if they're happy, they're gonna help keep our customers, the paying folks, happy as well. So that's the real critical piece, because then it goes to retention, right? If they're happy and they've got work that's rewarding to them, they're going to stick around, and that's critical for growth as well. Versus the the hamster wheel that a lot of folks are on.
I feel like it really started, Mike. It's funny, I didn't bring this up to you recently, but we're going to do it again this year, so get ready. We did a virtual caregiver breakfast on National Caregiver Day in February of last year. And so what we did was invite caregivers to join Mike for breakfast, obviously virtually from anywhere in the country. And that's something that I don't think that it's really done a lot, or has never really been done before at Griswold Home Care. And so he sat there and talked to them while they, we got breakfast for them wherever location they were at, and just sort of, had a conversation with the caregivers. How are things going with you? What are you enjoying? What could improve? And that was just a really cool event. And, it set off sort of like the mindset of focusing on caregivers all of last year, which we're going to continue. So,
that really was a real fun. That was really a fun event because we were having personal conversations. That was what was neat. What's your favorite breakfast food? And things were being thrown from left field by some of the folks we were talking to. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, I think the feeling of being part of a team, especially when you're sort of a road warrior and you're a part of the mobile workforce, the feeling of appreciation is probably the number one factor in caregivers turning over, even ahead of they know what hourly rate they're signing up for. So probably number two is just getting that ramp up of hours right away. But number one is that feeling of really being truly part of the team and being a valued member of the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 168 locations in 29 states right now, all in the U.S. What's on the horizon for expansion plans for Griswold?
Yeah, so right now we feel like, as I touched on, we've got a lot of expansion left to do domestically. But in my past, I have overseen home care across the UK, Ireland, and even Australia. So we will not in 2022, but it's definitely something I'll go back to when the time is right. But we got more to do domestically before we start expanding internationally. And I know I'm very familiar with the Canadian market as well. Had plans to go there before, and just dust off those plans and be up there soon.
Well, anytime you're in Toronto, let me know, and I can set you up with some Blue Jays or Maple Leafs tickets.
That sounds perfect.
All right, guys. Well, we're a little bit bumping up onto our time right now. Why don't I get you out of here on this? Give everyone listening to this a reason to be optimistic about home care.
Shelley, you want?
Yeah, I'll go first. Absolutely. I mean, home care is definitely such an important industry right now because of the pandemic, but not only because of the pandemic, with the baby boomers aging and so many people aging. We all know the stats and everything. Home care is very important. Helping people to live in the place they love as long as possible. That's what provides them the most comfort, both physically and mentally. And so being able to provide that service, is really important. And so home care definitely has a really bright future and for good reason. And so we're just really looking forward to the next several years.
Yeah, I would even, one of the things we really didn't talk about a little bit is I think our vision for that future. And I think, too many of us in this industry really just provide that caregiver. And the caregiver right now is just the means to that current ends to keep people in their home. But as we run out of caregivers, as the pace of the elderly outpace the increase in caregivers, we got to get more creative with technology and those types of things to keep them in their home as long as possible, as Shelley mentioned. But doing it a different way. And it's not just with hours, it's with technology. And it's not just with care. It's blending nutrition and it's blending pharmacy and all these other types of things. They keep raising the bar on home health care and then home And it's like they're going to keep raising the bar on us. And the folks that step up to that bar and not just provide people, but provide solutions are the ones that are going to really differentiate themselves and succeed in the long term.
Yeah, really thinking about life care, not home care or health care.
Right.
Well, super. Shelley and Michael, it's so nice to have you on today. I've learned a lot about Griswold, and I'm definitely going to keep an eye on you guys. And I hope you enjoy the holiday season. And thanks again.
Hey, thanks, Jeff, for having us on. Best of luck.
Appreciate it.
Home Health 360 is presented by AlayaCare. First off, I want to thank our amazing guests and listeners. To get more episodes, you can go to alayacare.com/Home Health 360. That's spelled Home Health 360, or search Home Health 360 on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. The easiest way to stay up to date on our new shows is to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We also have a newsletter you can sign up for on alayacare.com/Home Health 360 to get alerts for new shows and more valuable content from AlayaCare right into your inbox. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.